So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted that we have with us Tim Rogers, who's CEO at Future Transformation. So, firstly, Tim, thanks for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Future Transformation to the audience, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for having me. Delighted to be doing it. So, yeah, my name's Tim. I'm from Bradford, or the wider Bradford district in West Yorkshire. So, Bradford's made up of the city of Bradford and some surrounding towns
Yep.
and villages. And now I'm pretty rural, still within the district, on top of the moors, with Emily Bronte's novels, really.
Brilliant.
In that environments are largely untouched and unchanged really for the last 200 years. I grew up here and then I left in 2008. So when I completed my MA,
Yep.
I got recruited by the Dutch bank ING and I went to Hong Kong and
Oh,
worked
well.
which was there's a lot of stories out of that, of course. And while the Western economies were really hit
Yes.
by the credit crunch and financial crisis
Yes.
at that time, essentially banks lending when they didn't have the capital to lend, basically.
Yep.
The tiger economies of Southeast Asia were insulated to a degree.
Yes.
But come up to 2010, 2011, the local executive in Hong Kong, essentially its government, changed the rules on visas because they were starting to feel the pinch and
Yep.
they needed to employ more local people. So I and a lot of other people got dragged into a boardroom and given some dollars and a plane ticket to wherever we wanted to go. So I went to California for 3 months on a tourist visa,
Brilliant.
tourist visa. I don't remember much of that time, but I'm pretty sure it was good. But then when I came back here, decimated.
Yeah.
So the SME community in particular has
Yes.
been hammered, particularly manufacturing businesses that
Yep.
made things like kitchens and stuff like that. For big suppliers like Magnet had just disappeared. They'd just gone. And obviously
Yep.
there was with it. And it was stark, really. So I bounced around in different areas for a bit, doing different things in and around sort of corporate-based stuff, really.
Yep.
And then started getting more involved in tech, and then took the plunge and created Future Transformation. So Future Transformation is a not-for-profit,
Yep.
and we are trying to close the digital divide. Essentially, that's our mission.
Great. Yep.
How we're doing that is in two pretty ambitious ways. So the
Yep.
first one is we're working with a lot of different students. So we're doing a lot of outreach,
Yep.
and those students are helping us design and build a satellite that we are launching into space in 2025. So
Wow.
that's going to be in Leo, that's low Earth orbit, for 3 years. And then we're going pole to pole, so from the North Pole to the South Pole, back around. And that's going to be capturing gases in the atmosphere and temperature of the oceans.
Right. Wow.
Part of that observatory community.
Yeah.
But that's really just the hook, the entry, because what we're also focused on, and we've been developing this now for 4 years, is Eco Revive AI, right? So Eco Revive AI, this is ambitious.
Right.
Eco Revive AI is technology that is capable of learning from colossal amounts of data.
Yep.
And that data is human impact on planet Earth. So
Okay.
that's everything from plastics, fuel, heating, clothing, or everything, right?
Yep.
It's huge amount.
Yep.
And to learn from that data, we will be able to create new technologies that don't yet exist to reverse climate change. So not slow it down, not cap it, reverse it. as if the
Wow.
last 200 years of pollution hadn't happened.
Right.
Massive.
Wow. Wow.
But totally possible.
Yep.
So as long as we stick to the laws that we know and understand, so mathematical laws, the laws of physics, chemistry, biology, as long as we stick to that, we can do anything we want.
Yep.
And sticking to that. We are limited to an extent by the technology of our time. However, there are computers available to us that we can use. There are supercomputers. There's one in the UK that we've got access to, where we can start to develop this AI more seriously, because we need that ability, that computerization,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
pure to do what we want to do. So it's essentially what we close the digital divide, but whilst doing that, reverse climate change.
Wowzers. That's a vision right there. Wow. Amazing. Big. I'm trying to think that is it Good to Great where he talks about big, hairy, audacious goals. That's perfect example.
It's sort of more serious, really, because look, I mean, the further down the rabbit hole you go, the weirder it gets. But there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet. A lot of different stories, a lot of different experts or so-called experts and commentators. But the truth, I think people can see this. If you take our weather patterns of recent times,
Yep.
and you can see over your life how the climate is changing, the weather patterns are changing. We can all see that and we can all feel that. And whilst that can be largely brushed off by certain journalists or whatever, at some point it won't be able to. And that's because it's going to start to affect in a big way our food source.
Yes.
And when we start to do that, the knock-on effects of that, again, sticking to those laws of mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, you will start to see things like diseases spread.
Yep.
And global extinction events through different species, not just our own.
Yeah.
All the while, we know that the planet is getting warmer.
Yeah.
And that has been proven beyond any and all reasonable doubt.
Yep.
We know that pollution is on the rise, again,
Yep.
proven beyond any and all reasonable doubt. So we can see these big warning signs. And if we don't do what we want to do and reverse that, look, we will die.
Yep.
And not just us, the entire ecosystem.
Yeah. Wowzers. That's so how did you go from banking to this amazing proposition?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always been interested in space, and I've always been interested in science and mathematics.
Yeah.
And that interest obviously comes with a culture of sci-fi, I suppose, in terms of entertainment and things like that.
Yeah.
So obviously there was hooks there. But I think for me, probably the eye-opening stuff was before I went to Hong Kong and in between university degrees, so going from undergraduate to postgraduate, I did one of those. Do you remember the round the world tickets you used to get? Yeah.
Yep. Had one.
Yeah. So I did one of those, and I ended up. I ended up getting caught in a tsunami in Fiji. Oh, this is a long story, but long and short of it, it was the first time that I'd seen the night sky without night pollution.
Yeah, it's
All that street lights and building
stunning,
lights.
isn't it? Yeah.
Unbelievable. And so that just visible evidence right in front of your own eyes, when you can see that and see that stark contradiction and that contrast, I suppose I started spinning and thinking more and more and more. And it takes a long time to get to the point of development. You've got all your research, feasibility study, all that sort of stuff that comes along. That sort of journey probably began then, really. And then today is where we start to announce these things and go forward with them. But it's, I suppose, a little bit mercenary. It's out of survival as well. I don't want my children,
Yeah.
grandchildren, myself, to
Yep.
be affected, nor anybody else's. So there's that preservation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Security.
Goodness. So, I mean, you talked about your background in this. Is this something? Did you feel this is probably something you'd end up with from an early age, or
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, I've always been interested in tech broadly anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so I've got quite a lot of experience in cybersecurity, different cybersecurity
Yep.
companies, investment, and all that sort of stuff,
Yes.
as well as the actual practical application, technical know-how of cybersecurity. So I think when you start doing these sort of things, you get into that STEM or more specific tech sectors, things just jump because they move so rapidly.
Yeah.
So as you speak to different people with different ideas, some of them might not be great, some of them might be brilliant, and everything in between. You can think about different things in different ways. You get a lot of
Yeah.
inspiration. So I suppose really the answer to your question would be probably not, but through collaboration and partnership and conversations, I
Yes.
suppose it was an eventuality.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's funny you say about the night sky. We part of our round the world trip, we ended up in Nepal for a period, and that with, as you say, the light pollution and the atmosphere obviously being thinner as well, it was just stunning. I mean, it was just like this incredible view. You I don't know how many stars you can normally see. I'm guessing it's a few thousand when you got light pollution, but when you could just see in between all of those, this just carpet, it's incredible. Well, amazing. So as future transformation, as you develop, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome so far?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, firstly, we are very unorthodox in our approach. So to do these things as a not-for-profit, to me, that would seem quite logical and make quite a lot of sense.
Yes.
But it doesn't. These are largely profit-making businesses that are in these fields. I mean, if you
Right.
take
Okay.
creators of ChatGPT, for example, OpenAI, started as a not-for-profit, became for-profit because the area is profit generating. It's where the money is
Yeah.
essentially. If you go out places like Silicon Valley and London and different exchanges and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose for us, the big challenge is we've got to play by a set of rules that everyone has to play by.
Yep.
But our challenge, we need to change those rules. And those rules that are sat around things like funding, for example, that's a big thing. Because whatever profits we make, obviously we invest back in as part of the rule book, but we also give it away. In Bradford, we see a lot of people who are food insecure. So food bank
Yes.
use is
Right.
oversubscribed in Bradford. And that's
Yes.
true of many places in our country, which
Yeah.
should not be the case.
Agreed.
Um, there's also a lot of health insecurities, and a lot of kids around here who can't get dentist appointments. Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot of places for our profit to go, but when you're filling out funding requests, particularly the big funding pots. So if you think about UKRI or Innovate UK, these sort of big national pots, they want to see that. I get it. They want to see that spark and that growth for the economy, profit essentially,
Yeah.
which will stimulate more investment. Now, where I say that rule change, we can still do that, but that profit, instead of being invested, all of it being invested into dividends and
Yeah.
whatever else it may be, we can put that back into society to try and alleviate some stresses on things like the NHS, which
Yep.
when you have high food bank use, you have access to dentists and all the rest of it, your NHS is oversubscribed as well. Of
Yes.
course, those things are linked. So to get that story across, that's a huge challenge to make funders realize that. And then when you get to your when I look at my background and the good old investor folks around the globe, they're not interested in not-for-profits, really. Why would they be? So we need to present that story and that importance of what we do. And they get it. And there are some that will go for it.
Yeah.
Not enough. So they're the obvious ones. Coming back from that, though, another important challenge and one that's shared across the board, access to skills is it's so difficult. So we do all this outreach for the satellite project, and at the same time we're delivering skills in cybersecurity, AI, programming, coding, all that sort of stuff. And there's natural talent, but there's not enough there really in our area. There's a shortage anyway, but across, if you look at national pictures and even global pictures, there are shortages. But for us locally and regionally, I do worry about the skills development for the future.
Right.
We are committed to that. We want them. There are other great businesses as well. Most are committed to that because they need to be. That's where the future workforces are. That's where that labour market is. So the companies are doing the right things, but it's not just students. We also need to do outreach to teachers and to parents. The big community groups that need to be engaged. With a shortage of skills, that can kill an economy quicker than you can blink.
Yeah.
So we've got to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah.
Those are the big challenges. Then you sort of day-to-day stuff, I would say. There's a shortage of supercomputers, which we would need particularly for AI. If we think to the satellite project, there's a lack of a launch capability in this country. It's coming, but it's not yet there yet.
Yep.
So that means then we have to look outside of our country, and as you will no doubt have spoken to and maybe been affected by, along with other businesses, Brexit, and they're closing off to our neighbours who do have those resources. So we need to look further. The obvious place is the US. US companies are fantastic. They've got great customer service. They're very good at sales, all that sort of stuff. But good Lord, they know how to charge. And, they know the value.
Yeah.
They do, and they've got the need, they've got the solutions to our needs, and they can solve problems that we can't in this country. But it takes a big hit to do that. And particularly when you're not for profit, that comes down with the other challenges that string off it. Those are the sort of the main ones that are there.
Wowzers. I can, and I can understand that. It's I guess it'd be good to know what you've learned, what been some of the learnings you've had. I mean, obviously challenges normally deliver a level of learning, but are there any key learnings you've had about about growing future transformation?
Yeah, of course. Okay. I've always thought I've been quite a resilient person, right?
Yes.
Albeit a very lucky person, but still a resilient person. But I don't think I realised how resilient I am. And you will have no doubt heard this from other founders, business owners, and that sort of stuff. And I think where we talk about, or as we talked about just before we press record, about companies not promoting themselves and blowing their own trumpets, and it's the instrument, all that. I don't think the same is true of our own resilience, our own strength, our own confidences. So what I suppose I've learned is to try and share that more, because I am not alone in that, and you will find, I believe, that most entrepreneurs have that as they're born with it. They're born with that self-confidence, that resilience. They can take those hits, take those knocks. and get over stuff. So it's important to promote that and say that. That's a big key takeaway. Another one I think as well is another big learning, when you leading people, managing people for a bank, and you've got huge budgets and all, it doesn't really matter. It's not your money. If the shareholders are upset, they're not going to be upset with you. They're going to be upset with the executives. That's just their problem. So it doesn't really matter. You can pass that off. When you're invested in it, and you've done it, different. So I think learning how to be a proper leader and do proper management and create real productivity.
Yep.
Without so much a carrot and a stick approach, which is what I was used to in a bank.
Yeah.
More about that whole package.
Yep.
So environment and culture, if you like, that sort of stuff. I'm still very wary though whenever we interview people and they come to us and if they ever say, oh, I'm looking for somewhere that's like a family, that is a big red flag to me. Businesses are not families.
Right. Yeah.
A big red flag. So I there's still a bit of that, but you've got to realize that different people have different needs, and school runs, things like that.
Yep.
Going to the doctors, holidays, all sorts of bereavements, all sorts of stuff can happen. And then when we look at the sort of Gen Z or whatever they're called, the people entering now.
Yep.
They don't start work till 10 o'clock in the morning, usually. Different expectations, different demands. So how do you balance that with an already established older end who I start work at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to have lunch at 12:30 till 1. Regimented that structure, and then you need to be a bit more fluid, and you need to marry those worlds. So those are big key learnings and takeaways.
Wowzers. And we were talking before, but you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know across your career, really, but who are the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general? Who's had the biggest influence?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here now, being able to do this if it wasn't for somebody called Mandy Ridyard. So Mandy Ridyard owns a business called Progimax. They're based in Shipley, part of the Bradford district, one of the towns that make up the Bradford district. Aerospace manufacturer, great business. Wow. But Mandy's also chair of Space Hub Yorkshire, which is the UK Space Agency. A couple of years ago made a move to regionalise and make things more local. So Mandy chairs that. She's on the LET board. She's business advisor to our mayor. So without that person who can give you those insights, make you think, make you realise, bring you down to earth, so to speak. Without that, I wouldn't be here. So that advice, that you need somebody who can support you and bring you along.
Yep.
And or a group of people, and that without that, I don't think it works. So I've never met any other business owner or founder who hasn't had a Mandy in their lives or a group of Mandys who've helped them along the way. In terms of like formal coaching stuff, I've never actually done it. I've never had it. Not that not because I've not wanted to. It's just never been something I've got into. But certainly the value that is provided from that is critical. When I look at other, particularly tech entrepreneurs, they have regular meetings with different coaches, and that helps their thinking along the way. There's a big difference between coaching somebody and telling them what to do. There's not so being able to have that is crucial. But as a straight answer to your question, the person for me is Mandy Ridyard.
Brilliant. Great. Well, great. Clearly very significant influence. And I love to collect favorite quotes and sayings. Is there anything you catch yourself saying a lot that you any sort of quotes or sayings that you use?
I didn't know you were going to ask me that. I can't think of any.
It's fine. Some people do, some people don't. I
There
love it
there are a
because
lot, but I can't just pull them out. I don't know.
it's all good. It's all good. And yeah, I just asked the question because been some quite profound ones that I've picked up from talking to so many different people, and yeah, that I've added quite a few to my vocabulary over time. But no, all good. And obviously, you learned quite a lot about your own resilience. What else have you learned about yourself through your journey so far?
Yeah, flexibility as well. I'm more flexible than I thought. I don't need the rigidity and structure of what I'm used to, or what I have been used to.
Yep.
And I mean, to put it bluntly, really, I can take a lot of nonsense. You know what I mean? I can absorb that. So sometimes I think maybe I'm too maybe I'm not being serious enough. Maybe I'm not doing it seriously enough or taking it seriously enough. But in those moments, I realized that if I did do that, and I've seen this happen to other people, you can get into that cycle of burnout and health implications,
Yeah.
particularly around your heart and mental health problems. So I, I think I've learned that I'm so far, and obviously things can change under different pressures, but so far I can manage that work life that balance.
Brilliant. And that's really important. Yeah, I completely agree. It's that ability to know what's most important to you, and that too many people I've seen, I have worked with over time, have to get to the point of burnout before they look for any help. Whereas,
Yeah.
it's nuts. I burnt myself out. I know my first business, and it's nuts because nobody wants you to do it, including yourself. But we tend to have these drivers that make us do stuff that we wouldn't want anyone else to do, but we tend to do for ourselves. So, I mean, obviously, you've got an amazing future set of goals. And what does the future look like in the short term, or short and long term, I guess, for you guys? And what challenges do you face? Do you think, if any?
Oh, loads. We've got all our different tech challenges and all that, or recruitment challenges, all that usual stuff that everybody will say to you. But I think in terms of the short term, so if we, say the next 5 years maybe or something like that. So where our focus is not just on what we do day to day, but how our environment, our town, our cities get better, right? So locally for us, how can we are integrated in the development of different town plans, village plans, city plans, all that sort of stuff, and those wider strategies. But how can we actually make those things come into fruition? How can we support local authority to lobby government? And there's likely to be a new government in the next 12 months. How can we make sure we've got that ear of those
Yes.
policy makers, those decision makers? We stick very close with different civil servants in different departments, but you need those elected officials as well. So for us, relationship management, building when new people come in, and just making sure that we're in the minds of those
Yeah.
people who can sign the checks, who can make the decisions, because we've got to keep that momentum up. We've got to keep that investment coming. And it's a highly competitive market in terms of the north of England. We've all seen promises that have been made and broken. HS2 is probably the
Yeah.
one that people will jump to.
Yeah.
If you're sat in London, you wouldn't get it. And, but to put it into context, it is much easier here to drive somewhere than it is to get public transport to somewhere. And somewhere that
Yeah.
it would take you half an hour to drive to can take hours on a train
Yeah.
or a bus.
Yeah.
So we that understanding that flip, that north-south divide, we've got to close that. And
Yeah.
that comes from taxpayers' money, and that comes from big government investment projects, not just in transport, but also in our digital infrastructure as well.
Makes sense. There's a lot to do, a lot ahead of us, I guess. And um, I'm interested in what you'd say to anyone that's thinking of going to business right now, whether it was profit or not for profit.
Do it, you know.
Good.
So here's the thing: you can be wrong 10,000, 100,000, a million times. You only need to be right once, and don't try to do it on your own. You know, find that Mandy Ridyard or whoever it will be for you to give you that guidance to help you. There are lots of different incubators and accelerator programs you can do. There are a lot of business coaches you can speak to. But you need to integrate into a community of other businesses.
Yeah.
There are lots of different groups that will be local to you that do that. And you know, places like Chamber of Commerce or Federation of Small Businesses are good places to start, I suppose. So there's lots of options, but you need to be in those networks. Without a network and without collaboration, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Don't be worried about people stealing your ideas. In my experience, that rarely happens, really, because only if you're giving people headlines,
I agree.
you get it. I don't think most of the time. So why would they
I
burn the energy trying to copy it? So don't be too scared of that and sharing it.
agree.
But above everything else, you've got to take that first step. And what I didn't want to do was look back on my life and think, God, I wish I'd done that. So, you know, time, we think of time as some sort of straight linear path. And the truth is it's not. You know, it's messy. It can go in different directions. We've always got choices to do things, but you just go for it.
Yep. Brilliant. Couldn't agree more. It's just like it's an experience in itself, isn't it? That's totally different to anything else, and it's worth it. It can be very challenging, but also highly and highly valuable.
Yeah, well, you know, you will have days, weeks where you're worried and you might have regrets and all that. I have sleepless nights occasionally. It's just part and parcel of it. But I can do this on a Tuesday, you
Yep.
know, late morning on a Tuesday, I can do what I want. You know what I mean? Like this is the other side to it. So it's totally worth it.
I always say to people I work with that the challenge of having your own business is ultimately the buck stops with us until we have someone else in place that can take the book. That's the challenge. But the great thing about having your own business is we get to choose exactly how it is, what we do, how we do it, when we work, when we don't work, where we work, and that you don't get anywhere else. So it's great. And so finally, Tim, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
Oh, the best advice I could give myself with 18. Oh, such a difficult question to answer. But okay, I don't think this is the sort of answer you would expect or maybe allow, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it
Oh,
because
okay. Interesting.
I wouldn't want to change anything. Now, not that it's been all good, far, far
Great.
from. But without the downs,
Yeah.
the climbs up wouldn't have happened.
Agreed.
And
Completely.
it's through that that I'm able to sit here and do this. It's through that I'm able to sit here and talk to some of the biggest companies on the planet about how do we save the world.
Yeah.
And you can't, I wouldn't be able to do that if I went back to 18-year-old me and gave me some key piece of information, because I'd change everything, and I wouldn't want to do it.
Cool. Great answer. Not had it before, but great answer. So thank you. That's lovely. Tim, it's been really absolutely fascinating. I could talk all day, and it'd be great to certainly come back in another 6-12 months and just see what the next development is. So I'd love to do that. And for anyone watching that would like to get in touch with you or future transformations, what would be the best?
Yeah. So the site futuretransformation.org, the social media channels you would expect, really, and then the email info@futuretransformation.org.
Brilliant. Well, as I said, it'd be great to catch up again another 6-12 months. But thank you so much for your time today. It's been fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.